Okay, here's a riddle for you. Can a plant be born completely underwater? I mean, it sounds pretty impossible, doesn't it? But, nature is full of surprises. Today we're going to crack open a really cool scientific study that actually solves this exact puzzle.
So yeah, this is the big question. Being born underwater is a massive problem for most living things. You need oxygen to get going, right? But as we're about to see, some plants have figured out a pretty incredible workaround.
And here is our hero for today's story, the grass pea. This thing has a reputation for being unbelievably resilient, a real survivor. On top of that, it's a nutritional powerhouse. We're talking around 27% protein, so it's a super important food source in many parts of the world.
But even the toughest plants have a weakness. For the grass pea, its biggest enemy is waterlogging, a flood. And it tends to happen at the worst possible time, right when the seed is trying to sprout. It's basically the ultimate crisis at the very start of its life.
So, to figure out how some of these grass peas managed to survive this, scientists set up this brilliant experiment. They thought, okay, let's create our own controlled flood and just watch what happens.
And believe me, this was no small test. They gathered 53 different types, or genotypes, of grass pea from 7 different countries. The goal was simple, really. Put them all through the exact same flood stress test and see who sinks and who swims.
The way they did it was actually pretty straightforward. They planted the seeds, then they flooded them for 6 straight days, a really critical time with no oxygen. After that, they drained the water for 8 days to see which ones could bounce back. And then, at the end of it all, they just counted who was left.
So what did they find? Well, this is where it gets really interesting. The plants didn't just live or die. No, the data showed there were 3 totally distinct ways these plants responded to the flood. Let's break them down.
And when they looked at the data, these 3 patterns just popped right out. You could see 3 different stories of survival playing out. These weren't random results at all. They were clear, repeatable strategies.
First up, you've got the champions, the survivors. These guys are the real heroes of the story. They actually managed to sprout while totally submerged, and, more importantly, they had enough energy left to keep growing and thrive after the water was gone.
Then you have the second group, which is kind of a tragic story. We'll call them the false starts. They showed so much promise. They sprouted underwater just like their survivors. But it seems they used up everything they had in that first big push, and they just couldn't make it through the recovery.
And finally, you've got the non-starters. These were the most sensitive of the bunch. For them, the flood was just too much. They either never sprouted in the first place or they died off almost immediately.
Okay, so we've got these 3 clear patterns of survival. But this is where the detective work gets really good. The researchers started to notice a clue that wasn't just about the plants themselves, but about where on Earth they came from.
So the big question is, what was the secret sauce? What made a plant a survivor? Was it just pure luck? The answer, it turns out, was a definite no. The key was basically hidden in the plant's passport.
And here is the big reveal. The analysis showed this incredibly clear geographic pattern. All the really tough, flood-tolerant plants came from 2 places, Bangladesh and Ethiopia. They were totally different from the others, especially the ones from the Mediterranean, which is where the grass pea originally came from. I mean, just look at the difference here. It's wild. The seedlings from Bangladesh had a 54% survival rate, Ethiopia, 47%. Now, compare that to Pakistan, which had a survival rate of just 1.7%. That's a staggering difference.
So a geographic pattern this strong is never a coincidence in biology. This is a textbook example of evolution in action. It's a story about how a plant adapts to its home.
There's this fundamental rule in nature. When a living thing constantly faces a big stress, like, say, regular flooding, it has 2 choices: adapt over many, many generations, or just not survive there. Simple as that. So how did they get so tough? Well, that all comes down to farming practices. In Bangladesh, farmers do something called relay cropping, which means they sow grass pea seeds right into wet, muddy rice paddies. In Ethiopia, they grow it in these heavy clay soils during the intense monsoon season. So for generation after generation, only the seeds that could handle being born in water would survive to be harvested and replanted. It's natural selection guided by farmers.
And you can actually see the results of all this pressure in the plant's physical traits. The tolerant plants from Bangladesh and Ethiopia, not only do they survive better, but they also have smaller seeds and they mature faster. Meanwhile, the sensitive plants from the drier Mediterranean have these big seeds and take longer to grow,
traits that are a huge disadvantage in a flood.
So, what's the big lesson here? What can this amazing little pea teach us? Well, it turns out the implications of this go way beyond just one type of plant.
See, this is so much more than just a cool biology story. It's like finding a roadmap. It shows us that the solutions to some of our biggest farming challenges might already be out there, perfected over centuries by natural selection and traditional farming. And here's why this is so critical right now. The problem we're facing is that climate change means more weird weather, more unpredictable floods that can just wipe out entire harvests. But the solution, as the study shows so clearly, is to find these naturally tough crops and use their genes to help secure our food supply for the future.
And if you need one single number to really drive home how amazing this is, remember this: 17%. That was the average survival rate across all 53 types of plants they tested. So when you see those varieties from Bangladesh hitting over 50% survival, you realize they aren't just a little bit better, they are in a whole different league.
And all of this leaves us with one massive, exciting question. If the humble grass pea is hiding the secret to literally being born underwater, what other incredible climate-fighting superpowers are just waiting for us to find them, hidden away in thousands of other ancient crops all over the world?